Pledge of allegiance and welcome everybody to tonight's council meeting. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. All right, roll call, Jody, please.
Osborne.
Here.
Bentley.
Here.
Lund.
Here.
Euler.
Here.
Kushner.
Here. Approval of minutes from 7:25.
Move to approve.
Second.
Osborne.
Yes.
Bentley.
Yes.
Lund.
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. Adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt.
Osborne.
Yes.
Bentley.
Yes.
Lund.
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Kushner.
Okay, number 5, we have a presentation for stormwater assessment, asset management presentation by Enrico.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight,
Let's see, might as well wait a second.
good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight we'll be discussing, at least providing you an update on where we're at on the stormwater management, some of the cool things that we're working on. So with me tonight is Yonge. He's the CEO and co-founder of the Near platform. And he's kind of the real star of the show. But I would also like to do a major thanks to Danielle. She was very kind of instrumental in getting this going, in addition to Jason McCarty, our project manager with Public Works, and Dave McCannon. So Jason and Dave, they work together to make sure that the data that we're looking at today is accurate and valid. And so with their contributions, we can make real data-driven decisions. And so with that, I'd like to turn that over to Yonge for his part of the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Happy to be here. And, we've been working on this the last couple of years. We started with sanitary sewer system. So we moved on to the stormwater side. Since last year, we able to collect a lot of information. So one of the first thing in the risk management, understanding, where is the risk in the system is, try to understand what we have first. Is it all mapped geographically? And also, do we have any gaps in the data? Do we have missing any pipe material? Or all the pipe sizes are correct? How many culverts and bridges we have? And how can we quickly work through these issues? So, and if you look at the table right there, it's kind of gives you the overall inventory of assets, pretty close to 2,000 pipe segments, and also 35 miles of stormwater length pipe, and then also the area inlets and the curb and grate inlets, and then also the junction boxes. So we inventoried all these assets and also marked everything in the GIS database. So this is, when we looked at the data from a previous efforts, we understood there was a lot of pipe size was missing, and also the flow direction was, incorrectly mapped, how the water actually flows to the streams. There are some missing pipes, and also a lot of junctions. The outfalls is also not correctly mapped, so we're able to correct all those information, the invert elevation and all this stuff. So very instrumental is Jason, he's here, and also Dave. They went to the field and they, surveyed this information for us. So every week we met and we correctly mapped all those information. So once we mapped all this information, we have to figure out what is the priority for the system. What information do we have to make the decisions? So We want to make sure that, all the historical work that has been performed in the stormwater system in the last, 3 to 5 years. And also we want to transition from reactive to proactive asset management, which is the key to be a successful program. So the good news is, we have a system now. All those data is correctly mapped. So that's the old news. So going forward, we have all the information we have to correctly rank which pipes is the highest risk or which culverts and bridges are the highest risk in the city. So we implemented this program using some of the cool tools like machine learning to understand, can we actually predict risk without going into the field and assess the condition of the pipe. Again, my name is Longo. I founded this company to kind of help communities to leverage tools like machine learning to predict in a very affordable way to make a data-driven decisions. We've been helping several communities in the Midwest. We've been this time more than 2 years old company, young startup company based out of Kansas City. So what we do is we take all this information we collected in the first place, and then we also look at the soil type data sets, whether the pipe is closer to the trees or not, what kind of street actually underneath the pipe, what is the load, the traffic load of the pipe. Based on all those information, we can able to predict, how the asset is going to behave in the future, how much time we have before it become, some kind of a catastrophic failure. So we kind of rank all those pipes using this technique. So in the risk, there is two parameters we use in the stormwater system, which is the common framework used by well-run in the stormwater industry. So one is the likelihood of failure, which is kind of measures the condition of the pipe. Think of like what is the probability this asset will fail in any given year or any given day. And the second one is the consequence of failure, which is what happens if the asset fails. Is it going to affect 5 people or is it going to affect 500 people? So if you combine these two, you get a risk, which we call them BRE or business risk exposure, or you can simply call it as a total risk. And that will give you prioritize all the assets more programmatically so that we can focus our energy and resources on those assets. So this is kind of the metric we use in the industry. So we have 5 different buckets of risk. When you combine these 2 scores, you're gonna get from 1 through 5. Think of 5 as the riskiest assets and 1 is the really good assets. Maybe you just installed a few years back. So if you use the score metric to rank all those assets, you get this beautiful graphic that tells you the story. So here we have these different asset groups. You can see what is the total average score is, how many assets, in a very, very high risk category, and also where we land from overall average risk score perspective. So overall, I think, stormwater system, especially the inlets are fine, but the enclosed gravity in the pipes, you are in the moderate to high range. So that tells like maybe you need to focus on those assets which has a very high risk in the system. So that's what we did so far in the last probably I would say like 10 months, 12 months, assessing the stormwater system and predicting the score for those assets. And Enrico, when we met, like when he joined, so he has a pretty big vision for the city, and we've been helping one of the biggest community in Kansas City Metro. We've been doing this real-time flood forecasting for the community, and he wanted to bring that tool here so we can real-time, we can forecast what's going to happen in the next 24 to 48 hours before, if it's a big flooding event is going to happen. So what we do is we take the rainfall data from the National Weather Service, and then we forecast what's going to happen, how many roads is going to be flooded, how many structures is going to be flooded before 24 hours. So you can actually make a decision using this information. So And we've been very successful implementing this, predicting. So the model runs every 3 hours. Every 3 hours, you get how many roads is going to be flooded. So you can actually close the road, or maybe you can actually inform the public that road is going to be flooded in the next 24 hours. And you can also flag all those buildings or the structures based on the elevation, the lowest elevation we can get from the LiDAR data. We can actually say that building is going to be flooded or not. So a very powerful tool. And not only that, we can actually delineate the floodplain map in real time every 3 hours. That map will tell you how wide the floodplain is going to be for the next 24 hours. And also gives you the water surface elevation, how deep the water is going to be. And also it tells you the flood severity, which is depth times velocity, which is the water is moving fast. It's going to damage significantly. If it's just a standing water, it's not going to make a big damage to the structure. So all those information can be forecasted up to 24 hours or even 48 hours. But every 3 hours, you get this updated maps. So that's kind of the future that we want to go and help the community to kind of a more proactive data-driven decision. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
And if I may, thank you, Alonso. One of the other things too that I would envision with this tool is to have it be public facing so the developers can make those decisions as well. And so if it's a 100-year event or 200-year storm event, the proposed structures may not be in the floodplain, but they could be in the floodway. And so allowing them to make better informed decisions is a good thing as well for everyone. So I did want to kind of add that as part of this mix. So yeah, we'll stand for any questions.
Will this help anything working towards what we've been talking about, looking into stormwater utilities and stuff?
This is a big part of it.
Okay.
Kind of the preliminary steps to get there. So.
Good.
Were there any big surprises when he did this? I mean, anything like, wow.
I would say there are some neighborhoods, there's no stormwater infrastructure. There's no backbone infrastructure. So seems like there's no water to flow to the right location. But I've seen this many cities, so it's not very surprised, but that's the only thing. But the inventory that we did not only helps, the crew, but also, Daniel and us understand the system, kind of a very, big picture. But condition wise, your structures are fine, but the pipes and the bridges and they may be a little bit towards the high risk. But yeah, there are some neighborhoods there's no assets, but that's something that I expected.
So which weather forecasts do you use? Because some of them aren't very reliable, so I'm curious.
We pull in from National Weather Service radar data that gets updated. They call them here. It's a high frequency data sets. It refreshed every 1 hour, every 15 minutes, and be able to pull that data in real time. And so when you actually forecast weather, the first 5 to 6 hours is more accurate. Means like if it's gonna rain, if they say you have 90% probability, it's right. But when you go beyond 6 hours, that's what the resolution goes down. So the first, we call them first 6 hours forecasting is really good based on the radar data. We did the comparison between when we did the modeling, it was 90% spot on the first 6 hours. So, and I know Enrico was talking about rain gauges. If you put some local rain gauges, it might even helpful to understand, compare that in real time.
In addition to the rain gauges, we would also propose to install gauges to measure the depth and flow at our plants. And so that could also, there's co-benefits to that because that could also let us know what our I&I looks like, so that also can assist in other assets that we have. But the rain gauges and the flow detectors will also allow us to kind of corroborate the modeling as well. That way we can kind of make real-time adjustments.
Thank you, Alonso.
Question on the very high risk ones that are on the map. Is that more so the structure of the pipe, or is it the soil composition, or what exactly?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It could be a combination of many factors. the material that's most common, the CMP, the corrugated metal pipe, if you install in a, high corrosive soil, and that's, that's happening throughout the Midwest. We've seen, like, if you put a CMP pipe, it's corrodes pretty quickly. The life expectancy for that pipe is, when they sold it, it was 60 years, but you've seen it fail within 25 years. And that's happening in Johnson County, Kansas. Daniel, well aware of that. They don't install any more CMPs anymore. And everything is going to be, RCP and a different type of material. So yeah, the pipe material in a bad soil combo can, degrade the pipe very fast. And also if you have a VCP, vitrified clay pipe, if you have a lot of trees, the roots can cling onto it. So that's the two type of material we're seeing, causing trees, roots, bad soil, CMP, but yeah, I think that will also give the, Daniel and Enrico that what kind of pipe materials we can install going forward. So.
And I know there's some neighborhoods that naturally hold water that's kind of marshy, so is that something that we have to think about as far as putting some kind of foundation under those pipes to make them more stable and sustainable?
Yeah, based on the soil type, I think when we go for construction or design, you have to choose the right, pipe material, and you have to install it in the right, perfect spot to withstand all the loads.
Anybody else? Anything else, Enrico? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, number 6, public hearing. We will be hosting a public hearing on an ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit for land use 18.200 community utility facility in a general business district located at 505 East Yonge Street in Warrensburg, Missouri. Ms. Carroll.
We are becoming very familiar with conditional use permits for land use 18.200 community utility facility in a general business district. So you've had 2 for Evergy and 1 for the water company in recent months. And now coming forward this evening is Ozark Fiber LLC, and they're requesting a conditional use permit to use the existing building and the parking lot at 505 East Yonge Avenue. This is an existing building. It's been vacant for several years. Has not had a legal business in it, at least for several years, and has lost any grandfathered status. And so because Ozark Fiber is a utility company under the Public Service Commission, they're able to operate at that location with a conditional use permit, and their specific land use 18.200 does not require any required off-street parking. So like when we looked at the Evergy substation, they were not required to have off-street parking. And as a utility facility, this one would not either. And so they are able to make use of that building in a way that several other people who've looked at the property have not been able to make work for them, because the shape of the building covers most of the lot and does not control the property to its east, which is the driveway to the back side of the lot. So if there's a survey in your documents as well as a site plan, and they would be proposing to provide 4 parking spaces on the front of the building, hard surface parking spaces. And then there would be no parking in the rear, and they would not have any parking along the side. The side of that building is a 50-foot wide easement on the east side that is actually on the other property. It is not on their property. So they don't control that property, have the ability at this point to pave it and make improvements to it. And so in your ordinance approving the conditional use permit, staff has with P&Z recommended, and staff has incorporated into your ordinance language that if in the future they ever plan to use the rear of the building or the side, that it would have to be hard surfaced in the future. That is a condition of the conditional use permit. At this time, they've indicated they will not do that. That is not a part of their operations plan. Staff has recommended approval with several conditions. 3 of those were included in the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission as well. Staff kind of reworded one of them and added D, with staff being granted the authority to approve the final site plan as part of the building permit process. This is pretty typical language as part of the discussion Monday night with the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we would recommend approval of the ordinance at this time. I don't see the applicant in the room. I don't know if he's attending by Zoom. If so, if he wants to speak, we would raise your hand, John. Be happy to answer any questions.
Anything, Gary?
Kind of John is there, but
John Brock,
yeah.
he is there, but he is not raised his hand.
Okay, comments or concerns from the council? And the audience? Yeah, thank you, Doug.
Ask us if we had anything to say about
Pardon me?
it? Were you asking the audience?
Yes, this is a public hearing.
Okay, I'm just curious, it's fiber, Ozark Fiber, is that another?
Sir, will you please approach the podium and say your name and address for the record? Thank you.
No, I was here for another issue in regards to fiber optics, but I just heard that Ozark Fiber, is that another company coming in town? Along with
Arbor.
America Broadband. Yes.
Yes.
And then Socket, so that'll be a third one coming to town? Okay, I just need to clarify that for my notes.
Okay,
All right, thanks.
thank you. Anybody else?
I'm sorry, we did have a public comment come in today. Diane Hendricks of 507 East Yonge Street called City Hall today, stated she attended the P and Z meeting last week, but she wanted to follow up that she is aware of the easement on 507 East Yonge and has no issue with 505 East Yonge utilizing the easement.
Okay. Good. Okay, so there's no other comments. The hearing will now be closed. Number 7 is a second reading. First and second reading of an ordinance authorizing conditional use permit for land use 18.200 community utility facility in a general business district located at 505 East Yonge Street in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri. Presented again by Barbara.
Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, motion then, please.
Move to approve said ordinance by second reading by title.
Got it.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes,
Kushner.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit for land use 18.200 community utility facility in a general business district located at 505 East Yonge Street in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
yes,
Kushner.
Yes. Okay, have another first and second reading of ordinance. Approving the final plat, an ordinance approving and accepting the final plat of Winterset Villas, first plat subdivision in the city of Warrensburg located along Park Avenue.
Here in City Council, it was several years ago that you approved the preliminary plat of Winterset Villas, which is a larger subdivision than just this first phase. It's located on the north side of Highway 50, just east of Arwood's Furniture. So between Arwood's and it doesn't have frontage on Enterprise except for on the very northeast corner of the subdivision, but it does go fairly close to towards Enterprise Avenue. So this first phase is on the west side of the development and the north side and involves 26 buildable lots. We'll create one tract, which is for stormwater detention, and it creates 3 new streets. There's extension of Park Avenue and then a couple internal streets that will be constructed. The property is zoned R2 1 and 2 single family dwelling district. And so all of the lots have been provided at a size which would accommodate duplexes. So they could all be duplexes. They could also have single-family homes on them, but know that you can have one or the other or all of one within these 26 lots. The applicant has made all of the required changes that staff requested during the review process and would recommend approval. There are no exceptions to the requirements or special conditions or features of the property that need to be considered. Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval at their August 2nd meeting, and staff would recommend approval with the 4 conditions from the commission, and those have been included in the ordinance. Happy to answer questions.
Anybody? Okay, motion, please.
Move to pass said ordinance to second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
An ordinance approving and accepting the final plat of Winterset Villas, first plat, a subdivision in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, located along Park Avenue. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. Okay, the next one is a first and second reading, an ordinance authorizing city manager and city clerk to execute a contract with Vance Brothers Incorporated for the 2022 street maintenance program, polymer overcoat and seal coat in the city of Warrensburg, Enrico.
Actually, Jason McCarty, project manager with Public Works, will be presenting this item, but I can also stand for any questions.
Hello, Honorable Council. My name is Jason McCarty. I'm Project Manager for Public Works Department. After extensive deliberation over what we were going to attempt to do for street maintenance this year, we came up with a comprehensive list of streets that we are going to continue our polymer overcoat and seal coat procedure that we have done going back to about 2017. Initially, we got a little bit of consternation from the public, but once the seal coat was put on, it provided about a 5 to 7 year wear course that improved rideability and bought us some time on street maintenance issues on streets that didn't need a full-blown mill and overlay. This year, we're, instead of separating the two and doing the polymer overcoat and then coming back the following year to seal coat those streets, we're doing it all in one budget cycle. So we did put out a bid. Vance Brothers traditionally has been the only bidder on this. We did have one other that showed interest and they do the seal coating portion. They did not submit a bid, however, so we're asking for you to approve this ordinance and we can get some street maintenance work done this year.
Okay, and I see that you have to reduce a couple of the street due to cost increases, I assume.
Yeah, our estimates were off a little bit due to the increase in the price of diesel and asphalt, that sort of thing. So we kicked out a change order initially right off the bid tab, and to leave us a little bit of a cushion due to the fact that there's still some patching and crack sealing that's happening with the street maintenance
Right.
crew in preparation to do this project. So to leave them some money to purchase asphalt and other materials, that's what that change order is for.
Okay, and this is just the seal coat and chip. It's not any overlay, right?
No, we are deferring that to the next fiscal year, and we're hoping to put together a comprehensive mill and overlay project. In
Okay.
addition to a fairly substantial sidewalk project.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, for transparency, I would also like to add that the original list was amended as well, because some of the monies from this program was used to pay for the Zoll Street for the lining of the storm sewer. So I wanted to put that out as well.
Which, by the way, as a side note, the two smaller storm lines that drain into the big pipe underneath Zoll Street have already been lined under a change order from the sanitary sewer lining project. And they're in the process of actually building the 54-inch diameter, 100-foot long liner that will go under Zoll Street, and that's forthcoming within about 2 to 3 weeks. So that project will be fixed and done.
Okay. Thank you very much for the update.
I appreciate that.
Any other questions?
Okay.
First and second.
Motion.
Did we have a motion to
I'm
go to
sorry.
second? Sorry.
Move to approve said ordinance, a second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute a contract with Vance Brothers, Inc. for the 2022 street maintenance program, polymer overcoat and seal coat in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, 7.4, first and second reading of an ordinance readopting section 2.1 to establish a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interests of certain municipal officials presented by Ms. Schneider.
Thank you, City Council. The ordinance is a readoption. We've been readopting the ordinance since 2008. This is a statute requiring the city to establish a procedure and a policy to identify potential conflicts of interest and substantial interests of certain municipal officials. The Missouri Ethics Commission requires this to be readopted every 2 years. The deadline is September 15th. I've asked for a first and second reading since it's typically been done every 2 years in the city. Then, any questions?
No, doesn't look like. Motion.
Move to approve said ordinance, a second reading by title.
I don't have that language down yet. I'm taking notes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
Adopt ordinance readopting section 2-1 to establish a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interest of certain municipal officials. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
Thank you.
7.5, first and second reading of an ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute a contract with Tim Dykeman, DBA Concrete, Inc. for the restoration, restaining, and sealing of city's public art, downtown vibrations in the city of Orensburg, presented by Marcella.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you this evening is a request to authorize the contract for restoration of the downtown vibrations artwork on West Pine. The Arts Commission has been tasked with identifying the art within the city and those that need immediate attention or maintenance, and to solicit those requests by the local artists or artists that are available to do that. Mr. Dykeman was the award-winning bid of that after the commission had solicited bids. He has agreed to a maintenance of 2 years with that contract that his work will be maintained for that 2-year window at an initial cost of $2,800, with the caveat of any unforeseen circumstances that maybe arise during the restoration project. So I think this will, help restore that piece of art on West Pine and have some economic draw and some of the artwork on West Pine for our community events that happen. Be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody?
Just for clarification, where's that at located? The downtown, but
The circle at the walkway,
Bodie's Alley.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Perfect.
for lack of a better term, I don't.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
just
like,
was-
it's
I knew there was a couple down. I just wanted to make sure which one.
Right, it's a part of the roadway, so.
Okay.
Questions, then a motion, please.
Move to pass that ordinance to second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute a contract with Tim Dykeman, DBA Concrete Inc. for the restoration, restaining, and sealing of the city's public art downtown vibrations in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. Okay, we have a second reading. Second reading of an ordinance adopting Article 4 of Chapter 28, Wildlife Management of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Warrensburg.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is the second reading of the ordinance we discussed at our last City Council meeting to establish a managed deer hunt with inside city limits. We incorporated the changes that Missouri Department of Conservation provided us in that ordinance, and staff has not received any feedback regarding the ordinance. So we are ready for passing and putting this into our code book. And if this passes this evening, we will begin working on the resolution to design and develop that program. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Move to approve.
Yep. Move to pass that ordinance.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. We have another second reading on an ordinance amending section 14-119 for discharge of firearms and projectile weapons prohibited of the Code of Ordinance of the City of Warrensburg. Ms. Doolin.
I don't have anything additional to add to this outside of what we presented at the last City Council meeting. This will allow the use of archery equipment, the discharge of archery equipment as authorized by Article 4 of Chapter 28 that was just passed.
Move to approve the ordinance.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. Anything from DOC?
Any questions from council or Mr. Mayor at all?
No, I just give you the opportunity if there's anything to add that hadn't been.
We will be here in your hip pocket whenever you need us.
Okay.
Through the whole destination.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, other business. So 9.1, resolution adopting the final Johnson County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan upon approval of the Federal Emergency Management Agency by Kenneth James.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, tonight the resolution for you for consideration is adoption of the Johnson County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. Essentially what that is, every 5 years, we're required to review, update, submit a questionnaire. The development of the plan stems from back in 2000. The Stafford Act was amended by the federal government, now known as the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000. Since then, we've participated in that planning process. In your packet, I included the questionnaire that was completed by staff. Kind of evaluates where our community is in our hazard mitigation, identifying those risks that we have and actions that we would like to work towards. By doing so and participating in this, it opens us up for some opportunities for federal funding to help mitigate those hazards and during disasters, those considerations. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Recommend consideration on this resolution. That's submitted. It is contingent. All this goes, Pioneer Trails puts it together. The final plan is submitted to FEMA. They approve it. The resolution tonight is just our intent to adopt that final plan.
Questions from the? Motion to pass, or motion on the resolution, please.
Move to approve said resolution.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. 9.2 Sidewalk and Street Maintenance Program discussion by Mr. Enrico.
Mayor and council. Tonight we'll be at least kind of touching on the revamping of our traditional curb and sidewalk program, in addition to our longstanding street maintenance program. So currently, the sidewalk program, the city will collect applications for, if a homeowner or landlord wants to make improvements to their sidewalk. They would charge. They would pay $1.50 per square foot to replace the sidewalk, in addition to the city replacing the ADA ramps and the curb along with it. And then obviously with the street maintenance, the mill and overlay, the surface treatments, things like that. When kind of evaluating where we're at with the programs, we did find that there were some inefficiencies. In particular, that we often touch the street twice. So when you're removing the curb, you're affecting the street, and then a little bit later, perhaps we're going to hit it with a surface treatment. And so we were trying to find ways to improve that, and I think we have done that. And that's kind of the proposal tonight for the council's consideration. So under the revamping of the programs, the ramps and the curbs will be included in the street maintenance portion of the program. That way, as we're performing the surface treatment or the mill and overlay, we can take the curb and the ADA ramps with it. So as a kind of a more wholesale approach to the street maintenance. And probably the biggest thing is going to be the sidewalk portion of the program. In that, I don't have an official name yet, but I was thinking maybe sidewalk improvement program. So in that, think of the city as chunked into zones, say 10 zones. That, say zone 1, we would propose that under this, that the city take inventory of all the sidewalk in that zone. And then if there's sidewalk gaps, or if there's long runs of deteriorated sidewalk, or dilapidated sidewalk, that will improve that at no cost to the homeowners or landlords. Since we're doing it in bulk, there is an economies of scale that's produced from that. So it's more efficient for everyone. And then without putting any burden back on the citizens. So that's those are really kind of the two highlights of it, of the revamping of the programs. And additional efficiencies from that, we used to, at least our street crews, we would set up the traffic control for the contractors when they were performing the surface treatments if we weren't doing that. So we won't be doing that any longer. So with our contracts going forward, there'll be a separate line item for temporary traffic control that then they, that they would bid on, and then we would evaluate that just like any other quantity. With that, we are putting the liability back on the contractor, whereas we were kind of inheriting that before. So that's kind of another efficiency as we were kind of evaluating this. And so finally, this would give us the latitude to be more strategic about our sidewalk inventory as a whole. While we're kind of going through zones, we can also evaluate, would this be a good route for a safe routes to school? And so we're going to be looking at pursuing those monies as well, in addition to any community development block grants as they become available. And so it really just allow us to be a lot more smart about how we're kind of doing this going forward. And so that's kind of what I had in a nutshell, and I can stand for any questions.
So this would be eliminating the grant program for, and it would be more on us evaluating each area and putting in the sidewalks.
That's correct.
Any other questions?
We're not looking for any specific action this evening. This is really just something we wanted to present to you. This is a very different approach than we have taken in the past. So before we move forward and implemented that, we wanted to present it to you and give you all an opportunity to consider it, to think about it. So if you, after we leave this meeting and you get home and you're having some conversations or you're thinking about it, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Let us know what your thoughts are on that. You know, we won't be implementing this until January when we start thinking about how we're going to move forward. So we've got plenty of time to think about this approach and in consideration of it.
And I will add too, just a very small tidbit, that October, November of every year, we'll have our street crews go out and inspect those zones. So that way we're always ahead of ourselves, so we can get real-time quantities and what potential costs could be, you know, year over year. So there is kind of a benefit to doing this as well.
Sounds good. Okay, Doug's already gotten the paperwork. Appearances to the council not listed on the agenda. And we have Mr. William Wareham, something like that, close. Come on, up to the podium, please. And you live at 220 South Ridge.
I do.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Mayor, Council. I just came here late tonight to address some issues I have. I think some of you already seen some of my emails regarding some of the fiber optics. I live at Selman Edition, 220 South Ridgeview. I've been there for 23 years, since 1998. For the past 18 months, roughly, been dealing with these fiber optic companies. One, TNT, you know, bottom line is they're coming through, they're tearing up the yards and they're not replacing it. I understand the easement, totally get it, but they're simply not fixing what they're tearing up. The first hole they dug, I had to re-level, re-soil, reseed. Now they've done 6 holes in the corner. And I don't know if you guys can think of where I live at. I live right on the corner of Ridgeview and Montserrat, right from the Catholic Church. They've done 6 holes there. Well, on the previous one, they ruptured a main, which is a 6-inch right up in my name. I'm kind of representing Selman Edition. And they finally got that got fixed. Well, I've got an 8-inch main that runs on the south side of the property line. It's just a matter of time for these guys to go ahead and get one of those, because they just, and I've talked to friends of mine that live up in the north part where they're digging up there too. They're hitting these things, they're hitting lines like crazy. And they're just simply not repairing what they're tearing up. And it's costing me a lot of money to try to fix my yard again. So I take a lot of pride in my yard. Well, not the south end now, because they've already rutted it. They haven't re-leveled, done anything with it. And now I just heard that American Broadband walked up to my door saying, hey, we're going to be laying fiber optics in your yard again. So now I have 2 pilot boxes, everything's tore up, and now American Broadband's coming through. They're going to do the exact same thing. And I heard about Ozark Fiber, that's what I was up here earlier about. Now they're going to lay lines. So my question is, how many companies are going to keep coming through? Because for the past 18 months, I've been dealing with nothing but paint and flags in my yard for like 18 months. And I don't think I'm the only one. The gentleman behind me, he's going to follow suit. And it's just all over town. So if you look at all over town, you see all these holes. They're not repairing anything. They're just dumping clay back on top of it, and then they're moving on to the next one. So, and I just want the council to understand and show it as a concern. You know, it costs me a lot of money to repair all this stuff. That's all I've got to.
Okay, Enrico, do you want to?
I can add some to this. So there's a lot to unpack here. First being that we don't really have any true jurisdictional authority to not approve right-of-way permits without cause. And so there is that, and even that, there's a certain grace period that they should be given to cure the problem. And so if there's not like a health, safety, or welfare issue, I don't have as much authority. And so there is kind of that part. In addition to that, where American Broadband or any other telecom chooses to go, we don't necessarily have a say in that either. Perhaps if it's like an environmentally sensitive land or something like that, maybe. So, I mean, there is that too. We can't say be on the north side of the street instead of the south side. That's not really our say. But I would like to add that we do have inspectors out in the field monitoring the activity. If there is a utility hit, we have acted on those. And we are actively monitoring them now. And several of the contractors have improved their excavating techniques, such as the use of hydrovacking, and that has had significant positive impacts in the amount of hits. But it's always possible that hits are likely to happen. It's construction, there's facilities buried underground. And so it's always possible that a hit's going to happen. But further, with our inspectors out there, they do monitor the restoration. So such as laying seed or sod if appropriate. So I can't speak for this subject property for this gentleman tonight. I haven't physically seen it myself. But we can send an inspector out there tomorrow to verify whether proper restoration has been made. So that's kind of what I have for discussion tonight.
And from whoever of staff, we have no say for the most part over who can and come through with telecommunications, correct?
We have none. The state of Missouri in its wisdom decided to require all municipalities to consent to any state or federally authorized utility to use our right of way without our permission.
So who's responsible to restore Mr. Wareham's property back to where it was?
The contractor that has the right of way excavation permit is required to restore that right of way. And if that's not done, then that permit can be affected going forward. You don't have any authority to do anything retrospectively about what they've done other than to pull their permit. Certainly, anyone that's regulated by the Public Service Commission, homeowners have the right to register a complaint with the Public Service Commission. Sometimes that contains some response or traction, but some of these are not regulated at the state level, they're regulated at the federal level.
I'm starting with you guys.
Yeah.
So,
I saw your property. I went out there, as you
yeah,
know,
and
just
like
a
I
while
said,
ago.
that first hole, they
Yeah.
didn't do anything with that, so it cost me money to fix that.
Got more colors in that yard going every direction too. I'm
And,
sure
yeah,
Chuck does too.
Yeah, and it's just, but I mean, not only is it concern about the repair and the cost,
Yeah.
it's costing me. It's a simple fact that these guys are just hitting stuff left and right. And, and then like the last time they hit up in Joe's house, there's a 6-inch, there's an 8-inch main on the south side, there's a 6-inch on the east side. They hit that, ruptured that, and Megan, who was inside, they didn't even tell her, they just came by and capped it. She woke up to a freezing house, and then she was freaking out. And then, she called me and she called Joe, which was out. He's a pilot, so he was on mission. And it was just like, and then they just capped it and left it. Oh, we'll get to it later, kind of thing. And then it's like, oh, there's somebody in there, duh, and it was like, they came out and they fixed it, but it was like almost 24 to 48 hours before they got the gas. And of course, she had to have the utility company come inside, restart everything. It was just, it was just the carelessness involved, just through the contractors themselves. They're doing it shallow too. I mean, they are going super shallow. So like Byron, my neighbor, we're worried about, he just got a freshly poured drive and going down grade and going shallow. It's just a matter of time. And if they're using hydro, they start going under sidewalks and driveways, they're gonna start flowing out and they're gonna start getting cracking. And all these driveways that they keep flushing underneath. Just the same, just from experience. So that's my concern. I understand they have the right of way. I know what my easement points are. I get it. I even deal with them going up in my yard and hiding in the shade, you know, because it's hot out. No big deal. But they're just, you know, it seems like they're just not being regulated out there. And they're definitely not repairing what they destroy.
Our Public Works Department, our hands are kind of tied on some of this because both federal, state mandates outweigh us. We'll do what we can do through the Public Works Department, and as Mr. Harris said, you may contact the Public Service Commission, because in the past, I know for a fact personally on an issue I had, that usually wakes somebody up when they get a phone call from the Public Service Commission that there's a problem.
I mean, there's steps that I'm gonna go beyond this now, but I mean, I wanted to start with you guys first. I mean, because I should start at my local level.
Right. Okay. Truly appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay, Appleton's
Just me.
or Appleton.
She's gonna say. My name's Chuck Appleton. Good evening. Thank you for letting us speak a minute. William's already kind of filled in on things. I just kind of wanted you to know that we're seeing a lot of different things out there. We really weren't made aware that this was going to happen until about 2 days before they started digging. And we got these little signs in our yard that said sockets coming in. There they were. And that's okay. It's just, we have a nice yard, and so I got out and marked my irrigation system for him because I was a little concerned about that, of course. And Dennis Long was down the road from me that hit his and replaced it and fixed it, you know, which is nice. But
Mr. Appleton, where do you live? Where's
1410 Kimberly Drive, I'm in the Brookside subdivision is where I'm at.
Thank you.
Couple of things, there were 4 holes in my yard on the, I'll call it the landowner's side of the sidewalk, that are filled in but haven't been addressed. You know, I thought probably sod would be the easiest thing, but they said they just do straw and seed and they would put some dirt on everything too. And that's been about 4 weeks. So just to give you kind of a timeline, the first crew that was there were good, hard workers, and then they just disappeared. And the next day there was a crew digging a hole on the street side of our sidewalk. And he said, well, they got fired. We're the new guys and we'll do a better job. And there's I don't know what you call the machine. It's kind of it looks like an anteater to me, but it's got the tracks and it, you know, puts the cable under the yard and stuff.
Boring machine.
Yeah, and they had used that in our yard on the residence side of it. Now, I'd spoken a couple of times with a gentleman named Terry, who's part of the Public Works, if I'm saying that right. He's been really nice to talk to and helpful, but basically said, you know, they can do all this, you know, and I said, okay, I get it. And will they put it back? He said, yep, they will. But so far, nobody has done that. Just so you know, I've got a 3-foot hole on the street side of the sidewalk that's just been there for 4 weeks now, since the new crew started, and everybody's gone out of Brookside right now. And there's several of those orange and yellow fences there. So we're kind of all wondering, are they coming back? You know, and I'm sure they will. But I figured they probably got called to a hotter fire. That's just my way of saying it, you know. But we would just appreciate, you know, some interaction would be nice. That, hey, yeah, we see this is torn up, and they have to tear it up to put it in. I get that, but you know, we just would like it put back if you could. We'd appreciate that. And one of the gentlemen that works for Spire lives across the street from me, and he said, yeah, I've already fixed 2 gas lines that they hit, and we know the power was off one time. I'm sure you're aware of all that. And some of that is just normal. The first crew said they just didn't mark stuff right. You know, that's what they said. I have no idea. I kept all my flags out there, tried to, so far my irrigation system is intact. And I know that's not a big deal in the scope of all the things we deal with, but for us little homeowners and our little green grass and bushes, we try to keep them looking nice. So we just would appreciate a little help. When I talked to Terry, he said, yeah, there's Ozark fiber. And then he said, there's about 5 of them lined up coming in. He said, it's not going to go away soon. I said, okay, I'll be ready. But I don't know how that happens. That was the nice information you shared. I mean, basically they can just come in and do that. And I'm going, why? Why do we need all that? But maybe, you know, I'm obviously not. You know,
That's a great question for me. I'd like to know what advance notice are we given when they decide that they're going to target Warrensburg, and how do they do that? I mean, what's the process for, they just start up one day, or?
They do approach, you know, the city to let us know of their intentions to expand their footprint with us. They don't really disclose initially where they're going until right-of-way permits are applied for. So that is part of this. And in addition to the kind of the open pits that are in neighborhoods, I'm not excusing any of the utilities or the contractors, but if there were an order of operations to things, they would first locate the utilities, either hand digging or hydrovacking. And then once they have the utilities exposed, then the second part of the construction process would be to install the underground. That typically does not happen the same day. So an open pit would be exposed and, you know, have safety fencing surrounding it. And once the conduit is in the ground, generally, if they're a union company, they'll have their own fiber crew come in, blow the line in, make the splicing, and either that contractor or a separate one may come in and then install the handhold, pedestal, or cabinet, whatever facility it was that was supposed to go there. And that doesn't all happen at once. I know that there are supply chain issues, even from where I came from, where open pits were left open for 4 to 6 weeks. We're experiencing that even on our own construction projects. And so I do understand the concerns that any citizen has, for sure. But some of this is a supply chain issue. So again, I'm not making any excuses for the utilities, but I do want that to at least for your guys' attention. So, but utilities do typically come in to let us know that they want to expand here, and then we find out once permits come through where it is that they would like to go. So hopefully that
So
helps.
under that, I'm just curious, why are we having this gold rush right now? Why is this suddenly just the floodgates opened up?
I've heard things such as you know, the Infrastructure Act. There's also been things too where the utilities kind of have grant money for them to be able to expand into rural areas. So they're taking advantage of that. So that's one, in addition to probably just general business growth. But the second one's more my guess.
Is there anything prohibiting us from having conversations with them about the concerns of the citizens?
Not at all, and that has been ongoing. In fact, there have been stop work orders issued. There have been some punitive actions taken against contractors that are violating our right-of-way management ordinance. It's sort of like playing a game of whack-a-mole sometimes. but we're definitely trying to keep up with those things as information comes in.
And I will say, Tarl, that you know, we have one utility inspector that's kind of managing this as best he can, and that is Terry. And you know, for the most part, a lot of the restorative efforts I've been told have been going well, or at least better than they have been, especially since some of our more punitive actions that we've taken. You know, this Thursday will be our first utility coordination meeting with all of the utilities and their subcontractors, and this is a mandatory meeting. And so where we'd be able to discuss things like this. This isn't falling on deaf ears. We do act, and in some instances, we're trying to be proactive, but we're doing the best we can. So.
Thank you. You just, from the citizen point, you just kind of go, oh, wow, there's one, here's another, and you go, okay, what do I do? So thank you for listening.
We're all going through the same pain.
Yeah, I know. And I know it's a good thing, but just appreciate you here.
Thank you for bringing it up, both of you. Thank you. Mayoral appointment next is Devin Steele as a member of the P and Z to fill a vacancy for a 4-year term expiring April 30th, 25.
Move to approve.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. Number 12, miscellaneous matters from the mayor, city council. Saturday, we were down at the farmer's market, and we ran into a gentleman, and Jody has his car, that was doing artwork. And he wanted to donate a piece of his art to the city. He's from Little Rock.
Yep.
And so he came up to Carl and I and said, you guys pick. And I went, I'm not picking Carl. You get to pick which one looks better. And his name is Raymond Phillips Jr. And with that, we also offered him a position on the Arts Commission, and he was more than happy to for us to get a hold of him to get that done. So this is what he donated to the city, and Jody's going to find a place in some of the places to display stuff in City Hall, as we have other art pieces around the building.
And Tarl, you got to talk to him like I did the other day, and his situation is that he's living in one of the shelters
Yes.
here in Warrensburg, and he paints in that gazebo a lot of times over across from the police station. He's the man that sits there and paints from that gazebo, and you see him around town at different places.
Yeah. And he had various pieces of artwork that were pretty good. So that's why. Had a difficult time deciding on one.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so I think he would do a lot of good things around the community.
After 35 years, my wife still hasn't figured out that, what do you think that looks like?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else from any of the rest of the council? Farmers market, since that's a subject right now, it continues to be kicked butt good. There's lots of good food down there. I attended a ceremony at Whiteman Air Force Base last week to where the 509th Operations Squadron received what is called the Omaha Trophy. It is one of 4 awards that's made annually to the best strategic groups in the United States. General Shears, he's a 4-star general in charge of the strategic, and I couldn't say it all if I had to right now. Stratcom, which used to be the Strategic Air Command type deal, came in, made the award. He's used to be from here. Continued with our relationship to Whiteman. And anything else? Okay. Marcella, Director of Finance, report.
Good evening, Mayor. I'm happy to I'm happy and pleased to provide this report for you on our revenue streams. Revenue has met our expectations for the year and actually is exceeding that. We received the August sales tax money, and true to point in the fact that everything costs us so much more money. You know, the city gets to reap that benefit of that additional sales tax as well. So at this point, we've nearly collected as much sales tax as we had collected in the entire year last year, and we still have a month to go. So I think budget is like at $3.7 million for general sales tax. And we will be close to $4 million unless everybody decides that they don't want to spend any more money. And keep in mind that sales tax is received 2 months afterwards, you know, so the money we received in August was money that was spent in June. And so the September money will be money that has been spent in July, so it'll be the first part of the year. If everybody starts to cheer back, we'll see that. But it was a good receipt, you know, it was a good thing to see. I was very pleased with that. I would share that with you all. And finally received the performance and information from the state auditor's office to calculate and set the property tax levy in the nick of time without having to generate a special session to make that happen before the September 1st. So that will be done as scheduled on the 22nd. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question, but it's not tonight, but maybe in the future. The new IRA, the Infrastructure Renewal Act, I think, is that the name of it? How's that going to impact us? I mean, again, not to answer tonight, but in the future, it'd be interesting to see how it could benefit us, what monies are available, that kind of thing. But I think we're a few months away from actually figuring it out, but
Yeah, it's in the works, and Public Works is working on that because it involves all the infrastructure. And, you know, just know that if there's grant opportunities available, then, you know, we will explore and apply for as many of those as we possibly can going forward. We've got dollars to match, you know, so remember that you've got $17 million of GEO bonds that can be used to match, and we'll have some information hopefully on whether or not we receive the RAISE grant to utilize that money as a match.
And that's just in the next few days, isn't it?
Yeah, and so you also have the final draw on the ARPA money that we'll receive next month. And so that will come through the state of Missouri in September, just like it did last year. And so those monies are also targeted as either match money and or project money that, again, Public Works is working diligently to identify projects and uses for those sources.
Okay,
Thank you.
questions? No? Okay. Danielle, city manager report and staff.
Absolutely.
We just need to put Marcy under this and then go from there.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a few things. We have quite a few events coming up, and it's really exciting to be able to have these events back on the calendar. Thursday kicks off the Missouri State Fair, just right down the road off 50 Highway. The WCBB will be at the State Fair several times promoting our area. Sunday will be at the Visit Mo booth, and Councilman Osborne will be joining me. Thursday, the 18th, will be at the MTA Missouri Leisure Travel Show, and Warrensburg Park and Rec Director Danielle Foster will be joining me. And then I'll be back on the 19th at the Visit Mo booth, just a few booths down from All Wells in the agriculture building. So very excited about that. We will be having a booth at the Warrensburg Farmers Market on August 27th. It's the theme for that day is In the Bird. And then this Thursday, the 11th, is the WCVB August meeting, and it will be Zoom. And we just got the agenda posted. So if you have a chance, please join us Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. And we'll be talking about committee appointments and our budget as well. And then I'm really excited to tell you that I just learned a little bit right before closing at 5, that Old Drum was featured on the cover of Show Me Missouri. So the featured cover story is Old Drum. The editor, Gary Figgins, has been working on this for quite some time, and we finally scored that shot. So Old Drum is quite the cover model. So we're really excited about that. That's it.
Couple of updates. Might have seen a blurb Saturday, an incident at the hospital. So an ambulance crew showed up at the hospital. They had acute onset of illness. So there's just they suspected an exposure to some type of chemical material. So they initiated their decontamination plan, deployed their tent. Our staff went and set up to supplement that and perform the decon procedures on the outside as they work through that tent. So it ended, I think everybody came out of that okay, that had that initial exposure, but just another event to work with the hospital here recently. We're getting to know each other pretty well. So, and we some things that we learned from that last incident, some of those connections and communications have already improved. So looking good there.
Getting all your points in on disaster preparedness this year.
If you do it on credit, that'd be great. Also, last week we finished up the long process that it takes to select a captain to fill the vacancy that was created when Captain Atkinson retired. So the first news, public news tonight. So Kagan Wilson was selected to be the next captain. He's been with our department for about 13 years. All that was part-time until earlier this year. We finally convinced him that fire trucks were cooler than ambulances and got him back over to us full-time. So I'm happy to have him on board. He's going to do great. His position, his firefighter position, was filled with one of our part-time employees who's now full-time, Bree Yates. So that all became official today, and happy to report that of our 25 full-time positions, all 25 of them are filled. Yes, yeah. It's a fun story. I'll talk to you later. 3 student positions are open and 1 part-time position. So we made a lot of progress. Things have shaped up over the last 8 months now. So looking good there.
Good choice for Kagan.
Get that story.
Mayor and council, I did want to share that Public Works staff were actively pursuing community development block grant monies in order to fix a lot of our failing infrastructure. And so on the screen, the project area is West Market Street, in particular between Chestnut and Maynard. And so as part of this project, we've been utilizing our pavement condition index scoring for our streets, in addition to our sanitary sewer data that we've collected and our storm sewer. So this is really our data in action for this. And so with the CDBG money, the intention for this project is to completely, for lack of better words, gut the road, install new subgrade, install new asphalt. There are sections of Market Street that are wavy, more alligator cracking and spalling than a simple mill and overlay could cure, especially due to the PCI being a 16. Best practice is that anything below a 30 should be total street reconstruction. So as part of that, we'll make geometric improvements to the intersection so the water can flow easier. We're going to be capturing a lot of storm sewer improvements and sanitary sewer and stormwater. So with this, if you could drop the Google person to do a street view on Market, Gary. We're also going to improve the streetscape. So any utility poles that could be afforded to be underground, we're going to take those underground to improve the streetscape. Our intention would also be to install street lighting as well to improve visibility and get a better light canopy than exists today. And also installing street trees. So there's definitely enough width there to accommodate the street trees into the project. Our intentions would also be to make any necessary ADA improvements to the sidewalk. It being next to a school also is favorable to make those ADA improvements. So I wanted to share that. We've partnered with the Regional Planning Commission to help us draft the grant. there's a lot of bureaucracy involved with that, so allowing them to assist us with that. They'll be issuing a memorandum of understanding. And so we'll be bringing that to you all for consideration for this project. But I do want to say that this is a very exciting project to pursue. I'm not sure what this area's LMI rating is. So the LMI for the RPC is the low to moderate income. But we've given RPC 3 project areas. And so anything above a 51%, the RPC says pursue that. So this area either has a 52.9% LMI or an 89%. So we'll be able to figure that out once we get close. But with this would kind of serve as a model template for future CDBG projects. So we'd be looking at taking any above ground infrastructure below ground, making the ADA improvements, completely gutting the street and fixing it. So I'm excited about this, and I wanted to be able to put that on your radar. So if you have any questions?
All we have, the city manager's report this evening.
You were done, weren't you? Okay,
I'm just getting started.
looks like we need to have a closed session. Would somebody want to read?
I can read it real quick. Vote to close part of this meeting pursuant to section 610.021 of the revised statutes Missouri relating to 1, legal actions, causes of actions or litigation, 2, leasing, purchase or sale of real estate, 3, hiring, firing, disciplining or promoting particular employees when personal information about the employee is discussed.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.